Here's Brody Brazil.
You know, throughout this process of the Oakland A's attempting relocation to Las Vegas, there have been so many things that have come up or have been said that I still can't wrap my brain around. Like so many loose ends of things that normally they'd make sense, you understand it, you move on, you let it go. But in this case, they're hard to put together. They're not exactly clear. The math on this doesn't add up. I'll give you one example first. The 9 acres of a stadium site at the current Tropicana Hotel. No current modern major league venue sits on just 9 acres. Some would say Target Field. That's a bit misleading. They built part of the ballpark over an interstate in right field, but I digress. No modern Major League Baseball park with a retractable roof even comes close to as few as 9 acres. The next closest is almost a dozen acres in Milwaukee, in a ballpark they built about 20 years ago. So that's one thing. Here's another example. The projections of attendance for this ballpark in Las Vegas with the A's. And the reason why the attendance projection is super important is because that's how the bonds are going to be serviced that Clark County is going to float out there. $140 million worth of bonds that'll help pay for the stadium to be there. They'll need to be paid back by tax revenue collected on this site, tax revenue that only happens if a lot of people are coming to the games, buying tickets, buying food, buying merchandise, spending money on this 9-acre site. So that's why it's super important. But here's the part I simply still cannot understand. We go back to June 7th. This is in front of the Nevada State Legislature. On the far left is Jeremy Aguero wearing the olive-colored suit. And this is a quote from him as attributed by Tabitha Muller. She is of the Nevada Independent. They covered this whole thing inside and out. Aguero said this, quote, "I don't believe that the project achieving the 50th percentile is somehow setting the world on fire relative to attendance. This project is not without risk, but if problems occur, the A's will have a massive financial problem because the A's will have invested $1.1 billion. So again, that's Aguero on the left. That's Steve Hill in the middle. They both worked for the A's in kind of lobbying lawmakers in Nevada and Carson City for this, and obviously team president Dave Kaval there speaking on the far right. But going back to Aguero in this quote here, he's trying to make it look easy, that achieving the 50th percentile of Major League Baseball attendance is both conservative and very doable for a brand new team in Las Vegas, or at least an existing team, but in a brand new home of Las Vegas. And I would say, to his point, he's right in one sense. It shouldn't be that difficult, but only if you have the right tools for the job. And a stadium that only seats 30,000 maximum capacity may not be that right tool for the job. Let me spell that part out. Again, the 50th percentile doesn't seem like it's hard to accomplish. That's not a big deal. Just get to the halfway point. That sounds easy. That sounds respectable. Now, we don't have 2023 attendance figures yet. The baseball season's still in progress, but let's look back at 2022. The Seattle Mariners are right there at the midway point. I'm drawing that red line because the Mariners are the 15th team of attendance, total attendance, and the Phillies are the 16th team in terms of average attendance across Major League Baseball. Perfect. The Mariners are this example. This will be easy to spell out and show you why it's a little bit misleading that 50% is easy to get to. I'm going to give you 3 different columns here. Average attendance per home game from last season. So the average attendance across 81 home games for all these teams, the total capacity of the stadiums they play in, and then the percentage full of the average versus the total capacity. So there you go. The Mariners at 28,590. That's essentially what the A's have said they need to accomplish to pay off those $145 million of bonds with Clark County. That's not my numbers. That's their numbers. I think it's about 2.4 million visitors and tickets sold per season. So there's the math. 28,500 by Seattle, the midway point. I'm sure that's what the A's were looking at. But it's interesting because the Las Vegas ballpark would seat 30,000. Look at the other teams on this list, 43,000, 41,000. The Mariners at almost 48,000 seats at T-Mobile Park. And they were a playoff team last year. They got a surge of fans at the end of the season. And it really made up for all the slow nights back in April and May when they were doing okay. But let's be honest, every team takes a hit attendance-wise, not so much in the first week of the season, but the third, fourth, and fifth week of the season. It's still April and May, and school is in session. Night games are hard to go to on the weeknights. Weekday games also just don't get great attendance across the country. Look, I'm not an economist. I'm not anything professional. I'm not even a professional broadcaster, some might say. But I have been following sports for a very long time, specifically baseball. I've got a pretty good read on what happens to teams and attendance, and you never sell out every single game, every single season. And the Mariners didn't either, but they got to a respectable number because they could have huge crowds at the end to make up for some of the smaller crowds at the beginning of their season. So that makes sense when I show you here that their percentage full last year was less than 60%. They've got a huge ballpark, but they still drew respectably. And that's what the A's would be after. Just shy of 29,000 per game. Of course, they'd love 30,000 every single game. And they might get it for the first couple years. While there's a honeymoon period, people are just interested to see what this looks like. But this needs to be over a 30-year span to pay off the bonds from Clark County to construct this stadium. So look at the percentage full from some of the other teams, like the Angels. They draw really well. They drew 70% of capacity last season. The Brewers, 72% almost. And the Rangers at 51%, which kind of surprised me. They've got a new ballpark. I'm definitely sure that this year's attendance for them is going to be much better. Okay, so now that you've seen that, right? You've seen what the midway point looks like. Let's show you what the top attendance teams looked like last season in Major League Baseball. Let's also here at the bottom of the screen, let's superimpose the numbers projected by the A's for Las Vegas. So Las Vegas aiming for, let's say, 28,700 per game. Right? But look at the Dodgers, 47,671 per game last season. Again, these are all based off of last year's numbers. But Dodger Stadium also seats 56,000 total fans. Cardinals drew really well. Almost 41,000 of a capacity of 46 at New Busch Stadium. The Yankees did pretty well. Atlanta, great team in a new park. They drew among the best percentage-wise. And yeah, the Padres are resurgent. I mean, I think there's a couple obvious things here. Either you're a really good team, or you're a team with a new ballpark, or you're both. Like in the Padres case, relatively new ballpark, team that's super exciting, a lot of hype and anticipation down there, so they drew well. But these teams and these numbers, they change a lot. The Dodgers have been through years where they didn't draw well. The Padres, same thing at the old ballpark. Even the Yankees have gone through some ups and downs over the years. But how about the A's in Las Vegas? They would need 95.7% of total capacity to reach their goals. I mean, even look at Atlanta last year, 94%. They are far and above everybody else. So all of a sudden, we're not really shooting for that 50th percentile. In order to get the 50th percentile, you need to do something that no other major league team did last season. I'm talking about the percentage of average attendance versus the total capacity. When you're limited to just 30,000 seats, like this ballpark would be, you can't ever compensate for the slow nights by having the huge nights. Yeah, Dodger Stadium can get to an average of 47,000 because for all the big games, they can fill it up to 56. Over a weekend, they can have more than 150,000 fans in one 3-day weekend alone. But they were also 85.1% full last season. And for obvious reasons, good team, a lot of watchable players, a lot of big names. 95.7% full for 30 straight years. is what the A's would need in Las Vegas. So just to recap and put all of this side by side, right? You can really see right there how that truly sticks out. That is truly different from the rest. The 50th percentile. Look, this is a line graph on the bottom of the Mariners' attendance over the years, just to show you that even they have fluctuated. 2012 and 13, they were, I guess, around 20,000, versus the 28,590 that they're at right now. This just goes to show you nobody gets to the top, like of where they're at right now, and just stays there like a solid line. It just doesn't happen. So to get to that 50th percentile of average, sure, those two numbers in green right there, bright green, they're similar. But the numbers in gray, very different. And the numbers in light blue, also very different. And that's why the 50th percentile thing, it sounds nice and it sounds conservative. But in terms of how realistic that is, I guess we'll find out. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments section below. Thumbs up on it since you watched here all the way to the end. I definitely appreciate that. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel so that I can definitely see you back here next time.